Hola, 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 community! Welcome to another episode of this weekly gathering of Blender updates to learn about what's new in Blender, about what's new in the Blender community, around Blender, and in the future of Blender. Today, we have some announcements to make. There have been some dates, final date, not well, final underscore final dot blend one dot final for real dates for Blender 3.0. Sorry about that. It's gonna be in December. That is one thing we can say for sure, but it's still gonna be 2021. So that is very, very good news. So let's see, how to even find out about this stuff? Well, there is the there are many places. The Blender developers Twitter, for example, or any social media, we share it there. There is the BF committers mailing list. If you're not into all that social media stuff, you can also check it out there. And that is where Dalai posted that Blender 3.0 alpha which currently is in Beacon 1, the first stage where where developers add the big targets, the big stuff first. Beacon 2 starts in about 2 weeks from now. That will mark the moment where no more big, massive features, big as in like cycles X or geometry nodes fields, that kind of stuff, asset browser. Like, and there won't be a new editor, or they shouldn't, after Beacon 2. Beacon 2 is in 2 weeks, so that means that there will still be new features added to Blender 3.0, but it would only be around the main features. So more stuff added to Cycles X or Geometry Nodes or anywhere in Blender that is not part of a large project. That will last around a month. So in October 20, which is, it sounds like long for now, but actually it's not, Beacon 3 starts. You know what Beacon 3 is? Beacon 3 is when the moment where Blender 3.0 goes from alpha to beta. That means that everything-ish in terms of API, UI should be locked for people to write documentation, make tutorials, and all of that fun stuff. Also for stabilizing, for making Blender as stable as possible until Beacon 4, which is going to be November, like a month later, and then will be 1 week plus a few days buffer for making Blender like the final wrapping up. So yeah, that is actually pretty epic. And I just realized that I booked my holidays time ago for the older date, and now so I'm not gonna be maybe in Amsterdam, but maybe I can join from the end of the world, from Patagonia. That will be fun. Not internet speed is gonna be a challenge, but hey, I hope we can have fun together on event to release Blender 3.0. And then also remember that 3.0 is just the beginning. It doesn't mean like anything that doesn't get into 3.0 it's over. Actually, 3.0 is the beginning of the 3.x series, so expect more bigger features and refactors and cleaning up and a much neater software by then for 3.1, 3.2, etc. What else has happened this week? Well, it's not all 3.0 these days. There's also a Blender 2.93 stable that it's being released, and it continues release because it's a LTS. So every few weeks, every 2-4 weeks, there is a new release when there's fixes that support it, right? Or that make it worth to have a new release. So there has been many actually. In the latest update 2.93.4, which was released a few days ago, last week on Wednesday, there has been a lot of fixes, especially in the video sequence editor, some crashes as well, some grease pencil stuff, some graphics cards as issues also fixed. So make sure you check this one out. If you're using Blender 2.93.0, you should update like immediately. 0.2, 0.1, 2, 3, they all should. It doesn't really take that long. And also, if you use Steam or Windows Store or Snap on Linux, you're gonna get this update for free. By well, everything's for free, but it's gonna be updated under the hood, so you don't have to do anything there. Alrighty, let's continue. The other update of the week, besides this, besides the date for 3.0, besides 2.93.4, is that in the code blog, there is a new blog post that highlights the changes in some of the projects for the Google Summit of Code, such as the geometry nodes conversion of older modifiers into geometry nodes. And well, conversion, there will be new nodes. It's not gonna replace the old modifiers yet, but for that we need some kind of preset system that is not there yet. But the 9 nodes here are mentioned by the project of Fabian, so make sure you check this one out, and also the regression tests by Kalra, by Himanshi Kalra. So you should check it out too, because she has done an amazing work on making sure that, you know, whenever things change in the code, they get tested properly. So yay, thank you, both of you. I think we're good to go with all of this. Let's see what's new in Blender as of this week. Okay. How's the chat? Is it okay? I enabled slow mode with a few seconds delay only, not only 5 seconds or so wait, because I also like to see or to talk with you people, especially when there are developers in the room that I can ask them for questions. It's pretty handy. So let's hope no trolls today, or let's outdo the trolls by starting to share what's new in Blender. I don't know what I have in my throat. I'm gonna cough again very briefly. Okay. I hope that I muted the mic correctly. Otherwise, I would have left you there with a very nice sound, such as this sound by the Grease Pencil team. Smooth thickness when joining strokes. Look at this very nice addition, fix / improvement by the Grease Pencil team. Antonio Vazquez et al. Has worked on something that is better shown on the video he made here, where you can see the difference when using auto merge. So you know the auto merge feature in Grease Pencil, that when you are painting when you're drawing a stroke on top of another stroke, it will auto merge, just like in Blender Edit Mesh. It's the same concept, but now I would also like interpolate between the strokes. So as you can see here, once you have that enabled, you can draw and it will, this is how it used to work. And now more of how you would expect it. So it tries to blend between them. I didn't check the settings. If there is a setting, smooth rejoin, or if it should be an option, or like is there any kind of threshold? That's I didn't check the patch itself, but that would probably make sense, right? To have some sort of threshold. I don't know why would you want to have the other the previous result, but I don't see new settings. Let's see in the RNA. No. Maybe the modifier. Still super nice. Your webcam is overexposed. Yeah, it's sorry. I have to drink water. What is it? Okay. Yeah, sorry, the webcam. I bought a new an ND filter that now it will be underexposed, but I need to use it here. So okay, let's see the next improvement, also in Grease Pencil. This one is to the 2D animation template. So it's Grease Pencil / 2D animation in Blender. The template, so whenever you run the the new 2D template, sorry, what is it? I was fine all day. When you start the new 2D application template. So you do like Control N to start the 2D animation template, which already pre-fills, like changes the workspace, setups new workspaces, and all of that jazz. Well, that is actually a script. It's a Python script. You can make your own startup templates, and the animation, the 2D animation / Script Pencil team made it, and they added a setting. They turn on a setting now that is called scale thickness. It's to set on to true by default based on user feedback. Also feedback by the team itself, but it's pretty cool actually that those settings can be changed so easily. It's like, as you can see here, it's like just a setting on the startup. So if you have your own and you want to, it's like a extra startup.blend that doesn't change your user preferences, but your own setup. So it's not the most user-friendly to set up at the moment inside of Blender, but it could be. It should be in the future. Okay, let's see the next one while I try my... There you go. Okay. Pray for Pablo 2221. No, please do not. I just had a cough. You know what will make me better? If Blender was faster this week than last week, and it actually is, because in the performance side of things, we have an improvement on the math side of Blender, BMesh, mesh calculation stuff. Where does it apply? Mainly on the Smart UV operator. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I am well, that's the problem. I literally spent all day just fine, and 5 minutes before starting the live stream, it starts. Okay. Let's see what's new. Maybe if I just read the news. Boring, I know, but let's see. BMesh, optimize edge and face group calculation. So what does it mean? Well, if you read the changes here, it says the search for unprocessed faces to only search for the previous found face. So improvements on how Blender finds faces, looks up for faces. This improvement is huge. It's like in a 1.5 million triangle meshes gave a 75% x speed up, which sounds huge, but it's on a very specific case of using the Smart UV projection. So in that case, it seems to give like massive improvements when calculating, when having a lot of triangles and also a lot of islands. But it's gonna vary depending on how is your mesh, of course, and it might affect other UV projection types as well. But in this case, the developers only checked on this one case for the Smart UV. However, it's super epic. I mean, 75 times faster. That's pretty neat. They were doing Smart UV projections with meshes, very heavy meshes, like up to 5 million triangles. I asked him, Mikkel, on the chat. He very kindly explained what was that improvement. It could also improve performance of the select by operators, apparently. So yeah, this is great for photogrammetry. Yes, true. But yes, it's true. So Smart UV, faster Smart UV. Who doesn't want smarter? Is faster smarter? No. Take your time. I wouldn't mind the dumber UV, but faster. The next improvement is also an optimization on the Compositor. Yes, not everything is meshes and geometry nodes. The Compositor, when calculating the entire tree, it will now look for operations that are exactly the same, like they have the same type, same inputs, parameters, everything, and it will merge those actions so they don't take as much. So again, hard to measure, depends on your UV. I read UV by I read a comment by here UV. It depends on your setup, depends on how much you have this kind of operations that repeat a lot, but it should overall give a very nice update. And while we're talking the compositor, there is a new node in town. What is the new node sound? Actually, it should be even celebrated more because the compositor doesn't see new nodes very often. This one is called posterize node. It's pretty common in other image manipulation applications. It basically gives you the same image, returns the image, but with a limit number of colors. So if you want to make masks, it's super nice. Or if you want to have a old school look, again, it's also super nice. It's pretty simple. It has it has a step slider, and that's it. Next, this one, I think I'm gonna couple a bunch of settings, other changes in the user interface this time, but also by Aaron. So thank you, Aaron, for this improvement. And the next one, did I compile Blender? I did compile Blender, and this was on a Sunday. Aaron, you're not supposed to work that late. So okay, let's see here. So there are new panels. There is the output. Maybe I can switch sides. Yep. Let's read the commit log. So the dimensions panel has been split into two panels. So remember the dimensions. Well, yeah, you do remember this. It's been like that for a while. There in Blender, there is the dimension panels that basically contains both the. Let me open an older Blender here. That basically contains the time, the output, the size. So you can see here, dimension is a very long panel that includes not only resolution, but also time. And that can be a bit confusing, well, not confusing, but the thing is that it's really like a frame is not a dimension, frame start and end. Also, if you want to, it's, yeah, dimensions. For the size, it makes sense. For some other, it doesn't. Also, if you want to hide maybe some more advanced changes like the aspect that is not used as often and is taking some precious vertical space, for example, or any changes in the future, they belong in separate menus. So currently in this, let's see if I can make this bigger. So as you can see here now, the panel is called format, and then there is frame range. So there is two separate panels for that. I would say even the aspect ratio could go in somewhere like in another panel. But how often do you change the aspect ratio? It's like time stretching. It's also not used as much. There are some glitches here. I'm using my branch here, and there is no padding, margin at the bottom of the panels, but this is something I've been playing with. So that's why it looks different from master. So yeah, I think it's a good change. Do you? Isn't it better? Frame range? Never change that. Aspect ratio into a single line. Another one, X, Y. Well, we don't do that usually. We don't add two settings. It's like frame start and end. They could also be on one line, but we usually split them. Thing is that how often do you change that? Yeah. So by the way, this is the original theme. So this is the comparison. Playback range to make it one setting. Yeah, anyone know how Blender expected to perform the big little architecture of Intel? Not yet. Pablo, did your theme get accepted yet? No, I didn't propose the theme yet. this week we're gonna have a meeting, and I hope to present some of the changes that I've been doing in terms of the UI. They're very tiny, but well, tiny. They make it into panels. They change the triangle for this. Yeah, some little smaller changes in the theme, but it's very mild. I think it's yeah, it's not gonna be a huge huge deal. All right, the next improvement in terms of user interface is regarding thumbnails. So let's see, thumbnails. Increase the size of blend file thumbnails. So the thumbnail preview in Blender, like the preview file wasn't as big as the preview that Blender will show you. So it actually was showing blurry. It wasn't showing very sharp. So why Blender wouldn't use the optimal size for display? Legacy, I guess. Thanks to Harley, we have these new improvements. Let's see the change here. So larger thumbnail, so you can see it was already pixelated. Now not so much. Now you can actually see some details. The filtering is maybe not the smartest. You can see some ragged edges there, but it's fast. So I think I will go with fast over showing the thumbnail fast over having it with nice anti-aliasing. This is one of the changes, but there's another change by Harley also related to thumbnails. It's about the thumbnail preview not showing the render image, the image, sorry, the camera view by default, showing the image that it will render, but the preview, the workspaces of your actual file. So how do you have it over there when you saved it? So there is a setting here in the summer. Yeah, this is the one that it's it has an option to change the preview, the camera type. There was some discussion going on. Let me see if this is currently in the preferences. So it's in preferences. Let's see, where is the setting? Save and load preview type. Save and load preview tab. Yeah, there is known camera. Oh yeah, no screenshot at all, and camera type or screenshot. Yeah, there in the patch there were some changes at some point where it will have a few too many options, like workspace or a specific workspace, for example. But it would make it a bit more bloated, and it's better to limit the amount of settings in this case. In case you have to deal with a lot of exceptions if the workspace doesn't exist, or do you have to create it, or if the user loads with load UI turned off, what do you save with? So yeah. The next change is not related to the thumbnails by dispatch by Harley. Thanks Harley, by the way, but it's UI in the image editor, or also UDIM when you're working with UDIM. Ever notice how when working with UDIMs you see the images floating in space, especially since a change a few weeks ago where UDIMs now actually work when not all the tiles are filled in. So you end up with things like this without an image. This is with UDIMs, but some of the tiles filled in and some of them empty. This is how it used to be, and now it actually shows all the tiles available in that UDIM texture. So yay, thanks for that, Jesse, that pin. Very nice little fix for usability. Otherwise it looks like an error. It's like images floating around. There's no limits. Okay. Next improvement, also related to texture painting-ish. This is mainly a fix, but hey, here, you that are waiting for the improvements in texture painting. This one is a change in the workflow And the way it's an improvement, hopefully, that will help you keep in sync what active texture you have and see, and which one is showing, which one is the active texture to your painting on. So you're going to see more in sync what you select and what you paint on. However, this breaks muscle memory, right? If you were used to choose any texture as a preview, but then paint in another texture, that will change for you. So make sure you have, you check on this. Make sure you give some feedback. Most of the cases, apparently based on user feedback and the community, it's going to be predictable. What you select, what you click is what you get. What you select, what you paint. So give feedback if you don't like this new behavior. What is this thing of a fight between Linux and Windows on the chat? Like we were 15-year-old. Come on, anybody use whatever operating system you want. None is perfect. And also, it's not like it's all up to the operating system, right? It's depend like, unless you only use the default apps in an operating system. But you should worry about your favorite apps supporting your favorite operating system. Like Blender supports all 3 major operating systems, but maybe there are apps that are not available for another operating system. Because the fact that, I don't know, Photoshop is not available on Linux doesn't make Linux worse. It makes Photoshop users unhappy if they want to choose their own operating system, and the other way around. I'm currently here at home. Next week I'm gonna be at the studio. I keep promising. But there is a tool that I use all the time that is called Simple Screen Recorder. Simple Screen Recorder on Linux. And it's amazing. You just draw it. Doesn't look great, but you just draw a rectangle and it works, and you can capture a video of anything, anywhere. I have yet to find something like this on Windows. If there is anything like that, let me know. I couldn't find yet. Like there is some Windows internal recorder, like from Xbox something gaming, but it doesn't let you draw a rectangle. OBS, total overkill for such a small little thingy. Sure, X. Cool. We need your branch to get merged into the main branch. It looks nice. I think everybody agrees. Thank you. Well, it needs some changes still. I think it needs some improvements. Right now, I'm playing with the fact that the sub panels might be brighter. There is also the like up until now in the current Blender, the sub panels are actually drawn darker. So as you see, the deeper you go, the darker it gets. But at some point it gets just too dark if you have 2 levels. So some buttons are harder to see. So now I'm playing with the fact that because the background is darker, as opposed to here where this is lighter and then this is darker, and now inverting that into a darker background and a lighter panel / header too, because that way you can see where it starts and where it ends. We had some feedback in the past that people wanted to have a line. Like in Blender 2.7, there was a line in each panel. I prefer this way, to have a line, but because there is space. This is actual space between the panels. Okay. Let me know if you like it. Let's continue. Completely off topic, but the next improvement is not UI, kind of. This is more like a potpourri. I didn't know exactly where to place this feature. It's an improvement to the measure tool, the tool that allows you to measure things in the 3D viewport. So the tool is available in most modes, I think. You just enable it and then draw. Basically, that's pretty much it, and it will show you an indicator of the total length of your selection. But now you can press X, Y, or Z to measure to constrain the measuring to one axis. This is amazing. I always try to, like, sometimes you're working and you have like a model, like a person here, and you try to, okay, how tall is this person? So you go click, and then you have to make sure you are in the right axis. Now you can press set X or Y, and you can also press it again to switch between local and global axis. So yeah. The next improvement is not in the user interface. So thanks first of all to Eric for working on this. Much welcome. I think we are almost done. There is only, yes, there is a few changes in the API improvements and exposing features in the API for Python. There you go. And there are a few related to the asset browser. This one is for the window management in general. So if you have a script that you want to maybe remove some windows from a screen space, because you want to set up the scene. I don't know, for example, you have a script that on load you wanted to remove the outliner because or the properties because only you want an outliner. Well, you know, since a version ago, yes, you can right click and close an area and it will magically close it and keep whatever area is more relevant around it. You can now access this via Python. There is a script that we are using at the studio for basically converting Blender into a media player that we are using for the weeklies. It's an experiment, but the need for having a Python API access to this operator of closing windows was very important. So now we have it. What's the name? Close exec. Yeah, so area close, screen area close. Nice. Okay. What else? File browser. 2 improvements in the file browser API. So if you're making like an add-on that uses the asset browser or any area of the file browser, you're gonna have now a property where you can access the selected file, but not just the file name, which can be duplicated. If you're using the recursive view in the file browser, where you see not only the active folder, like the current folder, but also folders inside, it could happen that the selected file name also existed inside of the folders, so you have duplicate entries. Not anymore. Now you can access the relative path of that selected file, which makes it more unique and actually work. The next, it's related to this, but gives you a exposed list of selected files in the context. So it's a list of whatever you have selected. And that is all. That's pretty much all. Thanks, Julian, for working on that. And I think we are in shape to move into the questions of today. Let's see. Let me have a mat. I'm glad I stopped coughing. Knock on wood. But I'm gonna have some warm mate just to make sure. Well, sometimes I cough because of the mate, because there's like little pieces of herb that slip through the thingy, the straw thingy, and yes, it's please is missing. What is and makes me cough. Green pencil smoothness. Thank you, Daniel Lapalm, for making this, for creating the thread for Blender.Today Live 168. Way too many. Oi, Pablo says no. What's going on with texture nodes and the like? Nothing is going on. That is unfortunately nothing. Textures are used everywhere in sims. and in sculpting, and would no doubt be useful for other future features, seeing it as it can produce 3D textures, which can be used perfectly in place of 3D noise. Sculpting workflows and particle spawn workflows, I know it's being replaced by geometry nodes. I use it a lot. Particle spawn workflows. Yes, that would be part of the particle nodes then in the future. Having easier access and clearer access to 3D texture creation will be great. Will it be merged with shaders? Is it getting a replacement, or could it somehow be the impetus for a general 2D viewport, not unlike a 3D viewport? Textures node. I'm not sure I follow. So I think the first part of the question was what's going on with texture nodes. Not much, actually. If you see the changes that have been happening in the texture node editor since it was added, even, there are not so many. It's that area of Blender, it's in heavy need of a refactor and someone that can give some love to it. You know, there is this concept of orphan areas in software in general. The video sequencer was one of them at some point. The sculpt mode was also kind of orphan. Nobody was working on it until Pablo took and started doing some improvements. Grease Pencil was an orphan area of Blender as well until Antonio Vazquez jumped in. So texture node editor is in need of someone like you, whoever it is, you're there, not only the whoever asked this question, nope, but anyone that wants to do some coding and wants to get an area that no one is gonna bother you because it's really isolated, maybe you can give it a try. Oh, here you can see the panels in the wild, in the sidebar. They actually have rounded corners and a little bit of margin. I have an issue now that, well, it's not it's an issue-ish, that the panel, the margin, maybe I have to tweak it so when it's on the sidebar, it doesn't have as much margin on the left side, because it could look weird. And in the viewport as well, like if you're in the viewport, some panels, like this list of panels, then is a bit detached from the from here. So yeah, that is one thing that I didn't think of when adding the margin on the sides. Next question. So also, yeah, will it be merged with shaders? That's all unknown. Again, that whole area, it's up for grabs. I guess it will be tackled together with some kind of texture painting workflow. Texture nodes in general, if I would probably, I don't know, they'd probably be, it's better if it was removed altogether and start from scratch, thinking of a painting workflow together with texture nodes, probably, but not for 3. Yeah, for 3 is a different story. So many options. Thanks for the question, though. It's good to be reminded about this. Mille says, hi Pablo. Every time I do a transformation, like rotate, scale, and move on an object, I have to worry about apply or not that transformation, so it would be useful an option to apply it automatically. Another improvement for usability will be an option to make the grid snapping sticky on the ground. Actually, the option absolute grid snapping forces the movement to follow a grid that expands in all directions. But to use grid like a true reference, we need to stay on the ground. Okay, these are 2 questions. The first one, you want to have every time you transform to apply all the time. Ew. It has to be, that has to be an option. I wouldn't like to apply every time you transform. No, because if you move this way, for example, and you want to move it in the z-axis of this object, I don't know. At least I personally am really used to work with the local coordinates. So when moving, if I want to move it in this direction, I just press Z twice on G. So that this should be an option, like the applying. Should be an option. Scale, maybe. Scale is the one that can bring, can lead to issues. But for moving and rotation, not so much. So it's not a magic change. I think it should be an option. And also even an option per tool, per transform, rotate, scale, or move. And that is already 3 options. There is an auto apply add-on, apparently. C-Night comments. The other question, okay, the other question is about having absolute grid snapping to only affect one axis, the ground. So only affect this axis, but not the other axis, like this. Yeah, again, it's adding more options. Where would that be? In grid snapping? No, it's part of here. Snap to, yeah, but again, absolute grid snap, and then you have to choose which. Could be done, I guess. I wonder if it should be, is it settings to be here? Is it you're gonna change it that often, or is it up user preferences? Just transform it in edit mode. Yeah, that's another solution. It's just that there are so many corner cases, right? If you work with an object that is linked or that has like multiple object data, you can't do that, right? You can't. If you have a object and you alt the object and then change, and then you want to apply the transforms to this object, you see you cannot apply it to multi-object data, and it's so like, yeah, what happens now? Okay, next. In geometry node, to instance objects, we need to spawn them through another object. Is this a question or a statement? I think it would be nice to manage list of objects in a more programmatic fashion and place them in the viewport through a matrix node or similar. This is for, it's not geometry node, this is for object nodes or collection nodes. Daniel La Palma, hey Pablo, how are you doing? Doing great. I was, well, now that I stop coughing, but yes. I was looking at the discussion about sockets and noodles for geometry nodes fields. I love your idea of making the data path noodles green. The separation of data flow from function flow is something that I always advocated because of my time in Houdini, which keeps all functions flows on a lower level, keeping the trees more linear. Blender is having both flows out in the open, which is fine, but that's specifically why I love your idea of making the data flow noodles green. It's a great way to distinguish main operations from the math that is driving them. Hey, that's super nice to hear. Thank you. I also so you had some dashed lines perhaps in mind for function flows. I'm quite sold on the green line, but not sure about the dash line. That might be very busy in larger trees. Kind of hard to tell at the moment until we get builds, but I understand the idea behind it, of course. Thank you. Yeah, well, the dash line for function links, it's about the same. It's just to try to separate them, as it might not be clear if only green nodes, green links are used. So it's an extra indicator. The dash lines, they are usually rendered in screen size. So screen space size. So if you zoom out, you wouldn't see a million lines. You would just still see the same amount of dash lines. But also it could be that you could, when you zoom out, you could just draw them as regular lines. But when you zoom in, when you have the view at a particular size, zoom, then we could show the dash lines. That can be done. I was curious about what you thought about on making such things an overlay. If you could turn on the grid and noodles, dash lines, or any other styles from an overlay menu, that would be quite convenient and help people make their own decisions about how they prefer to read their trees. I suppose it could be in preferences too, but sometimes the preferences talk can be a bit of a meme. I feel like it would fit nice in overlays. What do you think? That's a good idea. We don't have overlays in the node editor yet, although we need them. We need overlays because, for example, the moving and the scale, for example, those they should be here, right? Because you can do that. And if you're using a laptop where people using this benefit the most, could be handy. But also because that way, if we have overlays, we can use and abuse maybe those overlay for namings, for example, for names of the nodes when you're zoomed out, or settings in general. I want to use the color wires more, so that is definitely not everybody's taste, so we could somehow yeah, I think it would fit like an overlay. It's a good idea. Thank you. Definitely not a user preference. Why do we not have a mirror modifier and array modifier node in geometry nodes? Let's see the answer. Porting all the existing modifiers to the node system is not that easy, especially since geometry nodes is a newly created system. I will need time to have all the current modifiers at nodes. This is a very valid answer. Thank you, Slow Kid. I will add also that the geometry nodes being so young, and if you've been following the news, actually this week, hopefully, the new fields system, the new geometry nodes way of working is going to be merged in master. So suddenly, because if you are using Blender every day, the development branch, and you update, you're gonna find that geometry nodes are easier to use, but they also work a bit differently and they are drawn a bit differently. So with so many, how do you call it, basics, basic concepts still being figured out, it's better not to port every possible modifier to the geometry nodes, because yeah, if something changed like it's about to this week, then you have to change every node. It's the same reason why on Cycles X, for example, people are asking for features, but at the same time there is a lot of refactor going on. Even though there are many new features in Cycles X that are not in the regular cycles, adding more features right now that in the middle of a cleanup and rewriting of the entire engine, it would add another step. It's not that you just need to refactor the entire system to work as well and better than before, but also add the new features on. So yeah, adding new features to a system that is new or being heavily refactored is maybe not the best. So that's one of the reasons why. However, many of those nodes, or the nodes that I show every week, they are being added by the community, like the geometry nodes community, developers community, that are not like Blender developers, but like Blender Build Foundation developers. They are added by the community, and they really understood and got the system, and then they provide patches and they get reviewed. And many of those nodes, if there was a list, I bet they could be tackled by the community. So it won't be up to what the Blender Institute Foundation developers want, but what the community wants. One step at a time, Heavy Poly, how are ya? Okay, love color wires. Since Pablo drinking mate tea, no more cough. He's been healthy now. I don't know if the word is healthy, although it's good for your digestive system. It's herbs, it's plants. I don't see anything about color management in the 3.0 roadmap announcement. Nothing about OCO V2 update or ACS native integration. Do you know if anything is planned? Not as far as I know, as part of the cycles rewrite, but No, not for 3.0. Maybe for 3.x series for sure, but not 3.0. I think the list of features already are quite a lot. Although if some color management settings were to change of the built-in presets, maybe 3.0 is a good moment to break compatibility. Hi Pablo, thanks for the show. Thank you for watching. Whenever you have the time, could you please look at regarding better scroll bar? Oh yeah, and the scroll bar behavior changes. I gave a long feedback here. I gave some notes, but actually apparently the patch, it's yeah, these are some of the things that some feedback that I gave. But what do I need to see? Apply these changes, and now it's possible to fade out the scroll bar outline. Hey, thanks. Did you code the change or share the code? I hope we can. I don't know if people are aware of this patch, but it makes it so the scroll bars are always consistent. They're always displayed, and I really think we should add that back because yeah, it can be very confusing to not have any indicator of the whatever it's like where you are in space. I don't know if you hear the knocking, but there is someone knocking outside. Not knocking, but working on something outside. Actually, it's 6:05 here, so let's do 3 more questions because it's already late. Five more questions. Let's do 5 more questions with my face blown out because of the summer in the Netherlands. Okay, next, I'm gonna keep this open and read on your comment, but if you have the patch for whatever I understood correctly, you were actually sharing some improvements on the code itself, please share. Hi Pablo, thanks for another great show. Great news on the Compositor improvements. Huge news. I'm wondering if there are any plans of incorporating, again, this question is the one I just answered, I think, as an alternative, either as a project or as an option perhaps. Again, 3.0 should be a reason why, like a good moment to break compatibility and have this kind of change. But I am not currently, I personally not a huge fan of the color management discussions. I wish everything would just work out of the box. I work in some teams where, yeah, the color management was a discussion, especially when people use other software. But I'm not familiar with the current state of things. The next question, hi Pablo, Dirk says, I've been testing the new experimental USD branch and that Sivran and NVIDIA engineers are working on. It's already pretty awesome, but I have found some bugs in the Blender to Unreal Engine workflow. Should I report these bugs at this early stage of development? And if yes, then I do that through the normal. No, please. The bug reports, they're only for master, for things that are in the main branch of Blender. Don't report bugs for Cycles X or USD or branches without, unless a developer is asking you directly to do it. But like on the chat, on Blender.Chat, for example. If you have an issue to report, there are places where to check. For example, there is the Blender.Chat channels. There is, I think there is one for USD, but there is definitely one for the render modules as well. So yeah, do not report bugs in the regular bug tracker for branches, please. Next, SMOOTHNESS. With this update, let us fix the input socket type. How about expanding it to support all the inputs already available in Blender instead of just select a few? Well, I don't. Let's see, what is it? Oh, gee, all of this. Bool, collection, color, float angle, factor. Gee. Um, well, I don't think the limitation is just some kind of... Well, wait, why, how would you... What use is to have a shader socket type in geometry nodes? You can't do that. You can't do anything with it. It's confusing, right? You need some kind of well, the display, like factor, percentage, and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, for everything. I've done a topic on here on right-click select. There is actually a patch for this. Oh, this is already here. So it's work in progress. I wouldn't have all of them. It can be a bit confusing. I would maybe focus on adding also more layout types. Being able to add separators. I saw a thread here on right-click select. Sub-panels would be nice. If we get to add sub-panels, then more of the modifiers could be moved into geometry nodes. Next questions. Locate. Last week I left a comment about pre-selection highlighting for loop and rig selection in order to speed up these operations and avoid multiple tryouts by selecting the wrong loop. You asked if the user can't find the correct loop immediately, how Blender could. This is a link to a video, 20 seconds, showing you what I mean and the benefit of having pre-selection for loop and ring. I don't think that the flickering is that problem as you mentioned, as this feature is present in many other software and can save a ton of hours editing. So yeah, clicking in the center is always gonna be issues. I know what you mean. I usually just click on the edges. Like you're actually clicking on the faces itself. I mean, I'm not excusing myself here, but just a tip. Like until we have these kind of things, always click on the edge, because then you know. Don't click on the face. Just click on the edge. That way you know where is it gonna, in which direction it's gonna go. Well, at least that's how I learned it when they added the loop select. But yes, I see how it can improve. But this highlighting like all the time as you move around, imagine you're moving around and there's like a slideshow on your... Again, it can help, but it should be an option, I think. Off by default. Look, like, isn't it? Like now it's moving very, very quietly, but come on, this... I don't know. Like, look at that. If you go frame by frame, it's... Here it doesn't, like when the loops don't know where to go. This is not useful. Come on. Even my face is all bright because of... No, I'm not kidding. Yeah. It can be a bit flickery. Okay. It's 12 minutes past 6 o'clock. I think I'm over time already. Thanks though for the questions. Yeah. I will have to see it working or see it in a way that it's more, it's less, yeah. Maybe as an overlay or as a setting. Yeah, I don't know. So let's do this again next week. What do you say? Is there more questions? Please refresh. I need to refresh the page. How is there okay, yeah, I think there is a few more questions, but some of them are actually answered already. This one is answered. These two here, I'm not sure I understand what MantaFlow is. Is it a fluid simulator or is it a thing where people can code their own simulators inside of? No, it's a physics library, MantaFlow, an extensive framework for fluid simulation. I don't know if, well, extensible. Apparently you can extend it, but it's I wonder how It's probably a lot of work to do that, unless you are keen to do. The next question was, hey, Pablo, how are you? Is there any news in Grease Pencil Eevee integration? Yes, the news is that the refactor for Eevee that was planned for 3.0, it's gonna be part of 3.1. That one includes the Grease Pencil shadows and hopefully more than, I don't know about reflections and other kind of, but at least shadows. Shadows should be part of it. There is a branch, but it's not going to make it in time for 3.0, but it will for 3.1, hopefully. Okay, that's it. Let's call it a day. Go full screen. Yes, cool, awesome. Well, I hope you had fun. We managed to answer a bunch of questions. I've been coughing a lot. I hope it was just some little thing in my throat. I will be, like I said last week, I will be at the studio for next week. We were almost done. I got all the gear, I got the camera, but I needed some cables for the microphone stuff at the studio because all of this is from my own setup. So I think we're pretty much ready to start live streaming from the studio. We got even a little couch there, so maybe we can have guests, maybe. That will be soon though. Very soon. Very, very soon. Until then, let's hang out again next week. Same place, same time, with a lot more updates, because this week we might have the new geometry node system. Maybe we can have the light next week for, or some geometry nodes developer joining the live stream to talk about it. It's such a big change. Maybe that will. Leave a comment if you want to have guests again back in the live stream now that the world is a bit more normal, at least in some places. Until then, let's hang out again next week, same place and time, for another episode of Blender.Today live. Gracias. Sorry if you were wearing headphones. I am wearing headphones too. See you next week. Bye.